Hello, and welcome to part 2 of Crafting Changes Flip and Sew Lapghan video series. This video covers the Lapghan construction, which is made in the flip and sew method. The strips are sewn through the batting and backing, then flipped, and then the next strip gets sewn on. This is perfect for those of us who are quilt challenged, as the Lapghan quilts itself. Before we begin, gather your sewing supplies and check your thread. Remember that the stitching across the back will show, so you may want to have a different color in the bobbin if you want that thread to match the back. Make sure you have a full bobbin and some sort of a presser foot with a 1/4 inch marking on it. You will also need room in back of your sewing machine, so pull your machine out away from the wall or set it on top of a large table. Now let's get started. Spread out the backing on your work table with the right side down and smooth it out with your hands. Make sure you press the backing so there are no wrinkles. Next, spread out your batting on top of the back, also smoothing it with both hands. You may have to go over it several times, but try your best to get all the wrinkles out. Position the lapghan so one side is even with the edge of your work table, and take the big safety pins and start pinning the batting and the backing together at one end, using about 4 pins across. Keep working down the lapghan, pinning a new row about every 10 inches until it's covered. If you need to, go back and trim off any excess batting that may be hanging over your backing. Just a note, I used a 90 by 108-inch batting, and it was enough to cut 4 lapghan battings out of it. We're going to find the middle of the lapghan to start sewing our strips on there and work down. I find this is easier to handle the lapghan while sewing than starting at the top. So measure the total length of your lapghan and divide it in half. Example, my total length was 50, so half of mine was 25. And then using a yardstick, quilting ruler, or a straight edge, mark this halfway point by drawing a straight line. This is where we're going to start sewing. Note, it's okay if you want, you can draw a straight line across the top perpendicular to the side and start at the top and work down if that's easier for you. Now we're ready to sew on the strips. So take your strips and lay them out next to your workspace in order. If you're starting at the top to sew these strips on, pick up your number 1 strip. But if you're following me and starting in the middle, pick up your number 7 strip. Place the top of your number 7 strip on that line that you've just drawn across the lapghan. Now reach underneath and grab your backing on either side and give it a light tug to make sure there's no wrinkles underneath. Smooth out your strip along the line and begin pinning it down. You can give the strip a slight tug to make sure it sucks down to the lapghan. I like to do a double pin on the end where I will start sewing. Now put the next strip, which would be number 2 if starting from the top, or number 9 if you're starting in the middle. Put that on top of the first strip with the right sides together and the raw edge matching. Repin the bottom edge through all of the layers. Now we're getting the lapghan ready to go to the sewing machine. So roll up each end of the lapghan to within a couple of inches from the strip and use a safety pin or a T-pin or a slappy bracelet or quilt bicycle clamps or something to hold those edges down and out of the way. Take the lapghan to your machine and sew the second strip down to the first with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Try to sew as straight as you can. Remember to remove your pins as you come to them and don't sew over them. You can use a walking foot for this, but if you don't have one, hold your hands in a 9 and 3 position with your left hand to the left of the needle and your right hand to the right to gently guide your lapghan. Feel with your fingers as you sew to make sure you don't feel any creases or wrinkles in your batting or backing. Stop as needed to reposition, straighten, and smooth. With your lapghan back on your workspace, either finger press this strip open or use an iron and set your iron at a low polyester setting to smooth it down. You don't want your iron too hot because of your polyester batting. Once you've got the second strip flipped down and smooth, pick up the next one in line and place it right sides together on top of the last strip you just sewed. Pin through all the layers, making sure the bottom raw edges match, and take your Lapghan back to the sewing machine and sew this strip down in the same fashion as the other. Now after the third strip is sewn, stop. Check your progress and accuracy by taking a ruler and measure from the top of your first strip to the bottom of the strip you just sewn on. Check a couple places across to make sure the distance is consistent and you're not going uphill or downhill. But if you are going uphill or downhill, just redraw another guideline to correct yourself and use this line to position the next strip to get yourself back on track. Continue working down the Lapghan, pinning, sewing, flipping, pressing, and checking measurements on each strip. Now, if you started in the middle, when you get down to the last strip, smooth it out, pin it down, and stitch it down to the Lapghan with a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, with the first half done, turn your Lapghan and go back to the middle and work down the other side. You will be starting with the number 6 strip and then go to 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Again, when you get down to the last strip, smooth it out, pin it down, and stitch it to the Lapghan with a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. Ta-da! Congratulations! Your construction portion is done. Now it's time to watch the third and last video in this series, which will walk you through straightening and binding.